Today's episode of the Too Close to Call podcast is brought to you by The Ram King, the T-Shirt King. Visit www.theramking.com for all your T-shirt needs. Everybody out there knows someone who is a teacher, or your wife or girlfriend knows someone who is a teacher, but next time you're having them over, you guys are having a get-together, bring up spirit wear. Ask them if spirit wear is a thing at their school. I guarantee the answer is going to be yes. Let them know that they have the perfect provider for all their spirit wear needs. Tell them to go to www.theramking.com, enter in all their information, where they heard about it, enter the Too Close to Call cast, and they'll get themselves a great deal for a great product at a great price. On today's episode of the Too Close to Call podcast, Pags and I get into the crazy week that was with the NBA trade deadline. The Sixers make multiple moves, which we discuss the MARKELLE FULTZ trade in detail. The Sixers finally move on from the former number one overall pick, and people are extremely happy around these parts. However, they're not the only team in the Eastern Conference that decided it was time for an upgrade. Both the Raptors and Bucks make a move, and Boston decides that it's going to wait till the summer to ultimately attack Anthony Davis. Not only were there trades in the association, however, the Phillies made the splash of the offseason this far in trading for the best catcher in baseball, JT Realmuto. They did have to part with two key pieces that were supposedly part of the future in catcher Jorge Alfaro and number one overall prospect Sixto Sanchez. We get into whether or not we think this is a good idea and ultimately if this is a precursor to further moves for the summer, a la Bryce Harper. We then touch on briefly the hockey team here in Philadelphia that's won 8 in a row, which has finally put it on the map. The Flyers, and more specifically goalie Carter Hart, have put 8 together in a row, like I mentioned, and are on the cusp of a playoff spot, so we touch on whether or not we think they have a chance. In our final segment, the Philly Grab Bag, we give you guys 3 bold predictions that have to do with the professional sports teams here in Philadelphia for the rest of 2019. And honestly, I think you guys are going to like some of those that we come up with. They're really good. As always, we appreciate you guys listening. Already the lucky 13th episode. We got some great content. So much content, in fact, that we're actually pushing our guest and our interview with Michael Ojo to its own specific episode over the weekend. So be on the lookout for that. Come on in. Let us know how we did.
Coach, you were 5-79 last year. Why the playoff talk?
Well, we made a couple of key trades, and we got the funk.
Oh, well, glory be, the funk's on me, Bobby.
Keep that funk alive. Keep that funk alive.
Well, it's 1975, and we'll just be keeping the funk alive.
Aloha and hello. It is Friday, February 8th, and this is the 13th episode of the Too Close to Call podcast. As always, I'm your co-host, Miho, here with my boy, Pags. Oh, shit, Pags. TGIF, man.
Yeah, man, another week down. Feeling good now after everything that happened yesterday with all the trades for the Phils and the Sixers.
Busy day across Philadelphia sports yesterday, for sure.
I got to tell you, I needed that day after the night from hell on Wednesday.
What happened to you Wednesday? Did you get a little too tipsy?
Wish I was getting a little wasted Wednesday going like the old college days.
Little wacky Wednesday action?
Unfortunately, I had a rare Wednesday night basketball at the Jewish Community Center down in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Wednesday night action at the Jewish Community Center.
First game, I show up. I have 3 in a row. No partner. I'm there by myself.
Ugh.
Go to the coaches. I'm like, hey, coaches, I will be doing this by myself. I will be seeing everything I can see. Usually if it's like youth kids, like I can do it. But this was like straight up 11th and 12th graders. They're freaking flying around. And I'm just trying to find the best spot on the court. I'm like running into the point guard and stuff because I'm trying to like hover. Nightmare. Anyway, my dad ends up showing up halfway through the first half of the first game. This coach, straight asshole, getting on my dad's ass, making fun of my dad. I look to the guy, I just go, hey, shut up. And this guy, you could have thought I told him to go fuck himself. This guy flipped out. He starts dropping F-bombs at me. He goes, you don't tell me to shut up. You don't tell me blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? He just keeps dropping F-bombs. I go, you're done. Get out of here. Kick him out. He keeps trying to come back into the game, stop the game. My dad calls the game. I go, whoa, we're not calling the game. But this guy has to leave. So security walks him out of the community center. He keeps trying to come back in. Finally, he's gone, and I have myself a Wednesday night.
Yeah, holy shit, man. The quick double tap, right? Double technical will fucking see ya.
First time I ever kicked out a fan or a coach.
Oh, well, dude, then you got to tell me and the listeners, how was your form on the old ejection toss, man? How was the follow through? What'd you hit him with?
Dude, it was like winding the clock in football, and I was like, you're out of here. Pointed right to the door. Winded up and pointed at the door.
That's when he threw the chair at you off the bench and all that
their
stuff?
chairs. I was getting ready for him to throw a punch. That's what this dude felt like he was going to do. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? These are like 11th and 12th graders who can't make their varsity teams, who absolutely stink at basketball.
Oh, my gosh. That's hilarious, man.
Yeah, man. Now this is our 13th episode. You give any thought to your old number 13?
So 13 holds a special place in my heart, obviously being the birthday number, January 13th. Here we go.
Nice.
So, can't pick myself if I could, but another reason why it's a special place in my heart is because of Dan the Man Marino. Dan Marino, Pitt Panther. He was actually there. I think he overlapped 1, maybe 2 years when my old man was at school there playing baseball. I asked my dad if he'd ever met Marino, and he was like, I saw him at a party or two, but we weren't friends. We crossed paths, both being athletes, one of those types of things. And I mean, him leading Pitt, he had like 37 touchdowns the one year as a college passer, and then goes right to the Dolphins, dude. In the 1 year, it's probably still maybe the most impressive year ever because, dude, it was 1984 and Marino threw 48 touchdown passes.
Imagine what he would have done with the rules now.
Right? Like pass interference, not a thing. All the rules for the offense. And he put up 48. The record now is what, 50, 55? It's only like 6
Something like
more
that.
35 years later. It's insane. He's clearly the best pure passer to ever play the game. The best quarterback, obviously, not to win a Super Bowl. I think that's, the running joke for Dan, but somebody's got to wear that in every sport. So he's the Karl Malone of football, right? But Dan the Man Marino, Pitt Panthers, once again, making it onto the podcast here. So that's my number 13.
Not to mention he helped find Snowflake with Ace Ventura.
That's right. Snubbed out of an Oscar nomination, in my opinion. Best supporting actor.
Best Marino was the fake Spike.
Oh, right, dude? The originator. Amazing.
Yeah, man. I mean, remember when Roethlisberger tried to do it last year and he threw a pick against the Patriots? That was hilarious.
He did it once or twice, though, successfully, so it lives on, right? It lives on.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Who's your favorite 13 here?
I want you to guess because it is so off the wall.
Oh, God.
I don't even know if you'll get it right.
I mean, the two other ones that had popped into my head, one is Wilt Chamberlain, Philadelphia guy. One of the best basketball players ever. And then the other one was the distributor. I don't know if that's his exact nickname, but growing up watching him, Steve Nash, baby, dice him up for the Suns out there. So the Canadian made up a nickname for him right on the top of the head.
The distributor.
Steve Nash. Look it up. I'm going to add it to the Wikipedia page here.
Yeah, there you go. Steve the Distributor Nash.
So was I right? Were those your guys or what?
Negative. Mine, he wasn't a great hockey player. I'm going to phrase that. He wasn't even a good hockey player, but man, did I love watching him play for the Flyers. Dan Carcillo. No teeth. Hit the game-winning goal in 2010 playoffs in Game 3 against the Devils that kept the Flyers going on that unbelievable run when they came back against the Bruins and everything. I just enjoyed watching him play. I'm like, this guy is just out there to beat the shit out of people. I looked up his top 10 highlights, and 9 of them were him fighting somebody.
I was going to say, I think he won a cup or two with the Blackhawks.
Yeah, we had traded him. We traded Scotty Upshaw for him, and he was leading the league in penalty minutes by over 20 minutes over anybody else.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, man. I actually have a cut-off Dan Carcillo shirt jersey. He used to rock it at parties. Be like, who the hell is that? I'm like, don't worry about it.
The man. Shit, that's great. Like, as you said, fortunately enough, busy day in Philadelphia sports yesterday and sports in general with the NBA trade deadline. I know we had our emergency podcast earlier in the week, but like we mentioned, Markelle Fultz could potentially be on the move. And ding, 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 baby. Another one we nailed.
I'm excited because I know that he's not going to benefit the team at all this year. But does a part of you like, what if he turns into something?
Always, right? Number 1 overall pick. Coming out of college, consensus number 1 overall. So, like, he wasn't a mistake when it happened, but he just hasn't been able to be healthy. And this nerve thing in the fingers, it's definitely something tricky. And I think for both parties, they just needed to move on because his expectations were always going to be so high here. And even if he was a solid player, it wouldn't have been good enough.
Yeah, and I just can't take another playoff run where I cut to him with the hood over the head and him laughing with T.J. McConnell going out bawling and him just sitting there smiling on the bench.
Well, they send him to the Orlando Magic for Jonathan Simmons, as well as, honestly, I was surprised when I read it, Pags. I really was. We got a first-round pick, I believe, from the Oklahoma City Thunder, so not a top pick, but still a first-round pick, and then a second-round pick, which I know you're a huge fan of.
Oh, I couldn't believe that we got all that for him. I mean, I'm sure Simmons more just out there to do the whole Justin Anderson minutes like last year. But my question is with Simmons, are we going to have a J Simmons and a B Simmons jersey now?
I don't know, right? Or at least a J Simmons. Ben Simmons may stay just Ben, but
overall, I like the trade. I like moving on from that because that was always a topic of conversation that you didn't want to talk about as a Sixers fan. And now with him gone, we can all move on from it and kind of focus on the playoff run now.
We didn't get anybody really to improve ourselves down the stretch, which we thought they may attack, and I think that means they'll just be a little bit extra active on the buyout market. However, after giving up a few first-round picks to acquire Tobias Harris, certainly getting one of those back, we gave up ours. Well, we go to Oklahoma City, so that's basically a wash now. So it almost makes that trade look a little bit better because Fultz, as you said on the emergency podcast, we're just trying to get something for him.
Exactly. They also add in James Ennis, I believe is his name. Never heard of him. They call him Ennis the Menace, so I guess he's a good defender. And that is something the Sixers definitely need.
Yeah, we'll take that, absolutely. And like we said, I still think a few pieces on the buyout market because they weren't the only team in the Eastern Conference who's at the top trying to make a move to improve themselves. To the team north of the border actually made a nice deal, in my opinion, as well.
Marc Gasol going to the Raptors, that's a little eye-opening. It's like, shit, now they got another guy that they can get the rock to. But at the same time, I don't think Embiid has a lot of trouble with Marc Gasol. Whenever I watch the Grizzlies play the Sixers, it always seems like Embiid has his number. So each team's going to keep trying to get better. And luckily the Sixers made some moves, and I'm excited because do you see these games coming up? I mean, tonight they got the Nuggets. Then Sunday they got the Lakers. And then Tuesday they got the Celtics all on prime time, all at home.
It should be a raucous atmosphere, especially with Harris making his debut. People should be fired up to kind of see that. I think you're right when it comes to Toronto and Gasol. I mean, he's not the same player he was 4 or 5 years ago when he won Defensive Player of the Year, but kind of in the role where Boban's going to play for the Sixers for 10, 15 minutes a night. He's a hell of an option for a second unit. And right now, even the first team in the conference, the Milwaukee Bucks, made a move. They actually traded with the Pelicans, part of that deal with the Pistons and Thon Maker, to get Nikolai Mirotic, who was on the Sixers' radar and I know is a nice ball player himself. So the rich get richer at the top of the conference.
Celtics didn't make a move, but the Sixers, Bucks, and Raptors make a move, so we'll see.
My question I have to you, Pags, is based on all of these moves, you got Kawhi in Toronto with some question marks into next season, Kyrie in Boston with question marks next season, the Bucks making these moves, the Sixers, questions on who they're going to retain. Obviously, everybody has a plan, but in your opinion, who's under the most pressure to win the Eastern Conference this year after making these moves?
It's no doubt the Raptors. They were the 1 seed last year. They got bounced by LeBron. They have had all these high hopes, and then they keep getting bounced. And this is going to be a one-year thing with Kawhi, so you think all the pressure's on them.
I say them as well as Boston, I think, has an immense amount of pressure on them. Trying to keep Kyrie, potentially trade for AD, and if you don't succeed in the playoffs, if Gordon Hayward doesn't turn into anything, then you lose Kyrie. You don't get anybody in the offseason because it's not an ideal destination. And all of a sudden, you're a solid team, but not spectacular anymore. So if they don't win, man, there could be a hell of a lot of change up in Titletown.
Hopefully there's not another freaking parade going down Boston this year.
Yeah, right? No, I'm with you. Even though the Sixers, there's obviously pressure to win now, and Elton Brand made win now moves, I don't think it's dialed up as much as some of these other teams.
Well, and also, I don't think Milwaukee, Toronto, those aren't destinations for free agents. The Sixers always have that pool where they can entice a free agent to come play for them, and I will touch on that later in our grab bag at the end.
Huh? Pull over! No, it's a cardigan, but thanks for noticing. Yeah! Killer boots, man!
Phillies actually dominating this podcast, and for great reason, because not only in basketball with the trade deadline, there was a trade on the diamond as well. The Phillies make a move, and it's not for Harper or Machado like you had begged this week.
All I know is his name is JT Realmuto, and I know he's a stud catcher.
Best catcher in baseball from the Marlins, the last guy they had, the last asset after trading Christian Yelich, who turned into the MVP, Giancarlo Stanton, who's just raking in Yankee Stadium. Realmuto is the last guy who was like, hey, get me the fuck out of here. I'm good now, and I'm trying to win now. And the Phillies gave up a few key pieces. However, if you break it down again, it doesn't look as horrible as kind of first glance because they gave up their current catcher and who people thought was the catcher of the future here, and Jorge Alfaro. However, he struck out at over 30% of each of his plate appearances. He couldn't fucking catch the baseball. You know, he gave up the most runs defensively for those defensive WAR metrics, but he fucking mashes offensively, and I think he had 5 or 6 of the hardest hit baseballs by any Phillies at all this season. So I see why Miami would want to take a chance on that, and it's a position for position swap. The main price and the high price that the Phillies paid was their number 1 overall pitching prospect, Sixto Sanchez, who was recently in Single A in Clearwater. And if you haven't heard that name, he was our number 1 prospect, obviously, like I mentioned, the number 27 overall prospect in baseball. And he throws 99, 100 miles an hour routinely as a 6-foot starting pitcher. So the potential is there for him to turn into a high-end ace. But pitchers are always a risky investment, no matter what their age is.
Yeah, I'm just so pumped I don't have to see pass balls or less pass balls this year. Oh, my God.
Yeah, he threw out so many base runners, but he just couldn't catch Sir Anthony Dominguez throwing 100 miles an hour with cut, and he just, oh, man, it was frustrating. So to get the best catcher in baseball right now, him and Buster Posey, and Buster's kind of on the decline. We get 1 more year of control for JT, so he's not a free agent after this year. So at minimum, we're getting 2 years of the best catcher in baseball, and it really does hinge on what happens to Sixto. However, this past year was the first year where they had to shut him down halfway through the year because he had elbow inflammation. Now, it didn't lead to Tommy John, but he didn't throw for the rest of the summer, and I don't believe he's thrown in either fall ball or winter ball. So, you know, he hasn't been on the mound in come a year in the spring, and you never know how guys are going to bounce back from that, as well as, yeah, you have your Pedro Martinez, and that's who this guy's been compared to. But 6-foot pitchers who throw 100 miles an hour, the track record for success there is shorter than it is long.
We get Segura, bring in McCutchen, bring in Robertson. Now we add Realmuto. Can we please add the one person I've been waiting to hear added to the Philadelphia Phillies?
He's coming, man, but that's not coming until March, like I mentioned. Potentially, if they were to add Harper, right, the potential lineup of Harper in right, McCutchen in left, Segura at short, Hoskins at first, Realmuto catching, Herrera in center, Franco at third, and Hernandez at second is a pretty good fucking ball club, man.
Unbelievable, man. And if the pitching can keep it up and some of these younger guys kind of find their way and Arrieta gets back to where he was with the Cubs or just at least a shell of himself, hopefully we can freaking make a run.
Well, I think it shows you the importance of an extra year of control because Sixto Sanchez was the main name in the Manny Machado talks during the middle of the season last year, and the Phillies were unwilling to part with him for a half a season of Machado. And what is it? 8 months later and they throw him in now for a deal with JT Realmuto, it makes you think, hey, maybe they're a little more concerned about how this elbow's bounced back as before when, it had just happened and it was first injury of his career.
The elbow is very scary when you're talking about pitchers, and yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with the get it going now, and this kind of is putting a ticking clock on Gabe Kapler. It's like, hey, here's what you got. Let's win.
Right? He's on not the hot seat, but it's definitely an improved ball club over last year, and that's going to lead to higher expectations with us, the Braves, the Nationals, the Mets. Every single team's improved, and this division is no longer going to be an easy one. Only the Marlins, man, are going to be the games that you pencil into the win column.
Would you say that it's going to be an NL East champ and then 2 wild cards coming out of the NL East?
I don't think quite yet, just due to the depth. St. Louis and Chicago are both good. Milwaukee won that division, so the Central's pretty solid. Out west, you'll probably get L.A. The Padres are trying to improve. Arizona lost some pieces. So I think it'll be 2 out of the East and 2 out of the Central for the 2 wild cards and the division winners.
That's exciting. I like when the East is high-powered and a lot of good teams coming out of it. I'm excited. Back to the old days of the 2000s.
Yeah, seriously, right? And the most amazing thing that I think's happened over the past 2 weeks is we have a professional team in this town that's won 8 games in a row, Pags, and nobody's talking about them at all.
Dude, Carter Hart, if I had to pick one word to describe him, I'd use amazeballs.
Amazeballs, right? Dude, I was watching some mic'd up behind-the-scenes NHL action, and they call him Hartsy. I'm a big fan of that.
Big fan. And we were watching the end of the game earlier in the week, and Alyssa goes, "Who the hell is that? He looks like he's like in high school." And I'm like, he basically is.
He's
That's
a junior or sophomore in college right now. I believe he just turned 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken. No longer a teenager, so clearly mature.
How many years would you say have we been begging for a goalie? From the years of Garth Snow to Brian Boucher to fucking
Bobrovsky.
Bobrovsky. Oh, well, that one still kind of hurts. What was the dude from Phoenix?
Ilya Brizgalov.
Good God.
Right, dude, it's been since Hextall. And this kid, like we mentioned, a young kid, 20 years old. For our listeners out there who are unaware, he's actually been working with a sports psychologist since he was like 13, 14 years old. His parents knew that goalies are just fucked up mentally, man. And we got to get this guy talking to somebody because if he's going to be the real deal, he's going to go through some shit. So mentally, he seems mature beyond his age, but that's because he's been fucking talking to a professional for 7 years already.
Hopefully they keep this thing going. That's just good parenting by those parents right there.
Next level parenting, communication. Yeah. So, but honestly, man, if they keep it going, they've gone from 14 points out of a playoff spot literally 3 weeks ago to 5 or 7, depending on which night in the standings you're looking at, with, a month and a half, 2 months coming up here. So it's definitely still a tall task for them to make the playoffs, but it is no longer something that is impossible. And I know we mentioned lose for Hughes. Well, that's disappeared after 8 in a row.
You hungry?
Yeah, well, I'm starving.
Oh, geez, look at the butt on that.
Yeah. He must work out.
You want to hit our Philly grab bag segment?
Yeah, let's do it, baby.
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick 3 bold predictions for the Philadelphia landscape in all 4 sports for 2019. I'll hit you with my first, and then you can go with your first, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds good.
Number 1, your Philadelphia Flyers sneak into the playoffs. Carter Hart keeps them going. He keeps scoring some goals. He keeps shutting out guys, and we got some playoff hockey that we didn't think was going to happen 2 months ago.
You think they're going to finish this comeback and ultimately make it? I know they're chasing 2 teams, and Columbus is the last seed right now.
They don't even have their goalie playing right now. Bobrovsky's refusing to play. I think we sneak in there. I'm excited for when they're playing outside against the Penguins. I always get depressed after football, and then I'm like, oh, wait, Saturday afternoon hockey against the Pens, against the Rangers. Oh, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, I definitely love playoff hockey, man. It's one of the best atmospheres in sports, that's for sure. So if that comes true, I'm a big fan of it for sure. So I'll give you my Flyers bold prediction. Not super bold, but first thing is I think they're going to trade Wayne Simmons before the trade deadline coming up here in the next couple weeks. So one of our key components of this squad is going to be out of town. I ultimately think they're going to miss the playoffs, but be very close. Either way, Carter Hart's going to perform well, and I think they're just going to be a little bit short. But the bold prediction I have is during the offseason, they're going to sign the top free agent defenseman available, and that's Erik Karlsson, who is a high name out there. He's going to be a free agent coming off the Sharks. He's going to get paid. But I think the Flyers are looking for a top-end guy to bring all these young defensemen along.
I like it. Now, that leads me into my second one, talking about off-season moves. Sixers, I think Jimmy Butler does not get retained by the team, but they go and sign Kemba Walker. Let me start off by saying this. Would you rather have Kemba Walker over Jimmy Butler?
I believe so, personally. I know they're both going to get max contracts, so if they're of equal value, I definitely think Kemba and his shooting and his grittiness almost, gritty Flyers plug, love
Gritty
it.
Flyers.
But I think he may be a better fit. The question is, are they going to bring Tobias Harris back in that situation that you're discussing?
I would think so. This is talking as if I'm assuming that he's going to play well for the Sixers, but I think Tobias Harris ends up being that stretch forward that they've been looking for, that they've needed, and they're going to retain him and then bring in Kemba Walker, say bye to Jimmy Butler, and we're back at it in 2020, ready to rock and roll again.
I hope you're right, man. I know we're going to be competitive at the very least moving forward, hopefully winning the fucking conference in the next couple years, and we'll have some fun things to discuss. My second Philly grab bag prediction, back to the diamond and some hardball. A not so bold prediction, but I do believe the Phillies signed Bryce Harper this offseason, and they're not done there. The bold prediction I'll give you is I think they may also sign Dallas Keuchel, left-handed starting pitcher from the Astros, and add these two guys and strengthen the rotation even more, which allows the move from Sanchez to be a little less troublesome.
Now we're talking about a World Series team right there, baby.
Now we're winning the East, and we're having discussions about October baseball. That's my opinion, and the stupid money's still coming. I mean, these trades have been fantastic, and they haven't even spent a ton of money yet. Like, they're still in the same spot, and they're even fucking better than they were.
They've signed McCutchen and Robertson, really. The other ones have been trades.
Right, and those are 2-3-year deals, so not stupid money at all. But I think the Phillies this year are going to surprise some people.
All right, well, my third and final one, just because I miss it already. It's only been a week. I miss football. Bringing back Carson Wentz, healthy, ready to rock and roll. Chip on his shoulder after some of the media stuff attacking him as a teammate, as a person. I think he comes back next year and leads the league in passing.
Leads the league in passing, huh? Going to be integrated back into the offense. A little more success this year. That also means he's staying healthy, Pags. That's a bold prediction in its own right.
Maybe that should be my bold prediction. Wentz stays healthy.
Right? So.
Or throws less to Ertz.
There you go. Distributes a little bit better, right?
Mm-hmm.
My last prediction, back to the hardwood. I think the Sixers, with all these moves, they sign one or two people on the buyout market, and they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they still fall short.
Come on.
Where they still fall short. And thus this offseason, however, I do think they bring back the team they have now, add Zaire Smith, sign one or two smaller contributors, and next year I think is the year where they win the East. And honestly, I think they win the NBA championship in summer of 2020.
Bold predictions aren't supposed to be sensible. They're supposed to be
I just told you they're winning the title in 2020, Pags. I feel like that's a bold prediction.
Well, this is the 2019 bold prediction, buddy. I tend to agree with you around that. I was going to go, Sixers win the East, because I don't know if they're getting past the Warriors.
Yeah, right? May not be worth it anyway.
Based off this entire podcast, shit's about to get really exciting.
Oh, definitely. Definitely looking up in these parts.
So, Kev, action-packed 13th podcast.
Yeah, hell of a lot going on this week, man. We had a fucking episode Tuesday, an episode Friday, an emergency podcast on Wednesday with the trade deadline. We had so much shit to talk about today, we decided that we couldn't even add our interview because I don't want the listeners to have to sit down for an hour and a half with Michael Ojo. That motherfucker's been to so many places. We had like 30 to 45 minutes to talk about. And, I mean, he's in Iceland right now. Well, it's crazy.
He has been to so many countries. I think he's been to more countries than states in the U.S.
I was going to say, what do we have? 8 countries that he's played in overseas. We're going to ask questions about every single one of them, get into what life is like there, what basketball life is like there, how the hell he's surviving. It's a great interview, and honestly, I think you guys are going to love it, and there's so much content, like I said, that we're just going to run it on its own.
Absolutely. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're going to keep the emergency podcast coming. If Philadelphia sports keeps giving us exciting stuff to talk about, we will keep giving you guys conversations about it.
That's it. We'll give our 2 cents. Either way, you guys are going to hear from us on Monday for the 14th episode of Too Close to Call. But in the meantime, over the weekend, when you're not doing anything, how about you pull up Instagram? Give us a follow at the Too Close to Call cast. Hit the little 3 dots at the top right. Hit share. Send it to your entire contacts list. All right? Share it with your friends. Get us out there. Help us out.
That's it. It takes 5 minutes, maybe. Help us out. Get on iTunes. Like our stuff on Spotify, share it, give it to your friends. Philadelphia sports, man, it's exciting time, and we're excited to get into this podcast game in the thick of it.
Like we mentioned out there, be on the lookout for the Michael Ojo interview, and be on the lookout for episode 14 on Monday or Tuesday.
Have one hell of a weekend, everybody.
We'll see you.
Later, guys.
Peace.